Welcome back to U.S. History. Today, we're learning about Chapter 3.5. We're about halfway through Chapter 3. This will be the last lecture before the test. Let's get into it. All right, today we're going to talk about those pilgrims. I started talking about them last time, but today we'll finish talking about them. We'll mention tobacco again, why that's important. Small picture, it makes money for the colonies. Big picture, you now want to plant a tobacco field, you need more land. So that is going to cause friction with the Native Americans. Okay? We'll talk about Bacon's Rebellion. Big deal, little deal, no deal? Huge deal. Let's get into it. What else here? You need to know different kinds of charters, and you really need to know the 3 geographic regions of the colonies, okay? So we'll talk about that as well. So let's see what we need to know for our class objectives. Understand the geographical advantages and disadvantages of the colony. Basically, southern colonies, you can grow more, you have a larger growing season, and that's gonna help you out. Fair enough? By the way, spoiler alert, colonies in the South, they're going to develop an agricultural economy. And in the North, you don't really develop an agricultural economy because you don't have the same growing season. So they'll develop more of an industrial economy. This dichotomy, you have 2 separate lifestyles, 2 separate people, 2 separate values. Spoiler alert, civil war eventually, okay? So you can start to see that the country has divisions in it from a geographic perspective that grow into the human perspective. Here we go. Understand the formation of government in the colonies. If I say representative government, you say House of Burgesses, exactly. And why did, if I say religious freedom establishes, tolerance, Mayflower Compact, you got it. Why did England want the colony of New Netherland? They want it for the port, and it'll make sense in a minute. Let's get into it. Here we go. Pilgrims, this is the second permanent colony. The first permanent colony was what? Jamestown. Excellent job, okay? Excellent. Jamestown, first permanent colony. So let's talk about the Pilgrims. Mayflower Compact, worth mentioning again. Not everybody on the Mayflower is coming over for religious reasons. And so, but they have to come up with a government that governs both the religious and the non-religious. And so this allows different people to live under the same rules. This is how we roll today, okay? And they also say, look, we've got the right to govern ourselves. Okay, here's a little more information than you need to know. The Catholic Church is going to split. What's that event called? You don't remember?
Inconceivable!
Oh, you do remember. Okay, great. Then you get a Mario coin. And a 1-up. The Reformation. Okay, there's a church of, there's a Protestant church now. And then out of that grows the Church of England. And people don't like the Church of England. They're going to move to the Netherlands. These people now don't necessarily like that their kids are growing up Dutch. They're not growing up English. And so they decide to come to America. That's the story behind the Pilgrims, okay? But when they get to Plymouth, when they get to Massachusetts, they arrive too late to plant the crops. And so they're going to starve a little bit, okay? A nice Native American Squanto shows the Pilgrims how to survive, how to get sap out of trees, how to get eels out of the river. And this is how we celebrate our first Thanksgiving. Here's a nice little cartoon.
Thanksgiving, 1621. Thanksgiving is an important holiday in America and Canada. Families gather together and have a large meal consisting of turkey, cranberry sauce, potatoes, sweet potato casserole, stuffing, vegetables, and pumpkin pie. But where did it all begin? The tradition goes back to 1621, when Pilgrims, who settled at Plymouth, Massachusetts, were celebrating their first successful corn harvest. Governor William Bradford, who organized the feast, invited the local Wampanoag Indians to join in the meal. The year before saw the Mayflower leave Plymouth, England, holding 102 passengers seeking religious freedom or promises of land in the New World. They eventually landed in America and begun settling at Plymouth, Massachusetts. Many did not survive the brutal winter. 2 Indians greeted them and showed the weakened pilgrims how to cultivate corn, extract sap from maple trees, and catch fish in the rivers. This would ensure their survival for a successful harvest 1 year later. An alliance with the local Wampanoag tribe would ensure harmony between the European colonists and Native Americans for 50 years. The feast became known as Thanksgiving for the first time in 1623 to mark the end of a long drought. And the first National Thanksgiving Day was proclaimed by President George Washington in 1789, in which he called upon Americans to express gratitude for the end of the War of Independence. In 1863, the tradition became a regular holiday in the United States when Abraham Lincoln declared that the last Thursday in November should be celebrated as Thanksgiving.
Welcome back. Okay, look at this slide. I want you all to understand this level. If you got this level, you're good for this class, okay? Foundations of Government, House of Burgesses, and Mayflower Compact. I almost said House of Burgers. Okay. Here's why, or the next level of knowledge. House of Burgesses establishes the concept of representative government. You're voting for people that represent you, okay? Mayflower Compact establishes the power, or the idea that we have the right to govern ourselves, not necessarily someone off in England. And then also that we're going to be inclusive. Even if we're religious people, we'll include non-religious people or vice versa, okay? So we have these 2 religious groups. The Puritans, they want to purify the Church of England from within. And that's juxtaposed to the Pilgrims, who are separatists. They just left the church and they're out on their own, okay? So you've got 2 different you got one group that's the former Church of England, the Pilgrims, they're on their own, and then you've got the Puritans, and they're all around here. Again, people come to America for freedom. At first, it's religious and economic freedom. Later, it'll be political freedom, okay? So we're talking about Puritans. Anne Hutchinson is expelled from Massachusetts. As the story goes, the ministers are like boring or something, and then they go to her house, and she's just alive with the Spirit, and everybody loves her, but women can't be pastors or priests back then, or something like that. And so she's expelled. Later, her and Roger Williams become pivotal in creating Rhode Island. And so if you wonder why we have this small colony, Rhode Island, it starts off, so people have come here for religious freedom, and then there's another place that's even more religious freedom. It's religious freedom from the place that's for religious freedom, and that's Rhode Island, okay? Let's watch video about the Puritans. Okay, hold on. Warning. This video is packed full of information. It's long. The guy bores even me. I'm going to cut it down to like 1 or 2 minutes. Just hang in there the best you can.
Winthrop was a brilliant lawyer, and he becomes the first governor of the Massachusetts Bay Company, or the company has a board of directors that the shareholders who choose the governors and the deputies, those who are going to run this. Remember, this is a for-profit enterprise. These investors from England had put money into this hoping to get a return, some more interested in the return they would get than in the souls of these Puritans who were leaving in order to save them. And Winthrop is aware that other colonies had had their charters revoked. The Virginia colony is the one most on his mind, so he does a couple of things to limit the possibility of that happening. One, the charter of the Massachusetts Bay Company doesn't say where the annual meeting will take place. Usually a corporate charter says the annual meeting will happen every year in London or in some other British city. This one leaves that blank. And also, Winthrop wants to make it difficult for the British Crown to get the charter back, so he takes it with him. The charter is on the Arbella. And when they get to the New World...
Oh, welcome back. Look, the guy, what he has to say is great, but like he needs to wake up a little bit, you know. Okay, I'm not trying to bag on him, but you know, you get what I'm saying, right? You picking up what I'm putting down? Okay, Salem witch trials. I'm not going to do it justice. You can read about it in your book. It's got a whole special section on page 73. I want to invite you to open your book and read to page 73. But basically, people are going to be accused of being witches, and they do different things. Dunk them, throw them in the river. You throw them in the river. If they drowned, they were innocent. If they swim and they live, they're guilty of being a witch, and we got to kill them. I've heard varying accounts ranging from 19 to 27 people died. This era of history lasts a little over a year, around 20 months. And here's what it looks like today.
Well, it sure doesn't look like much, but it turns out that this spot is the very site of one of the darkest moments in our state history. This is the actual site of the Salem witch hangings.
And neighbors have suspected for years that they knew the truth. Tonight, as Shantae Land shows us, they have actual proof.
The markings on this map
1700.
that 72-year-old Thomas Brophy has kept in his family
And this area here shows what was, as it says here, Gallows Hill.
coincides with what the city of Salem confirms this week to be the exact site of the infamous hangings of 19 people
It's the probable place of executions.
from the 1692 Salem witch trials.
How do you feel knowing that this right here is in your backyard?
Like I say, we've always kind of lived with the suspicion that it was.
Brophy, whose family built and owned this house for 5 generations,
This is the area over here that everybody is talking about.
walks us to the site.
And this is what they call Proctor's Ledge. This is what you're standing on right now, this ledge.
The homeowner tells me that this is the spot where the accused witches were hung. Many across town say they could see them hanging from this hill.
If there was people hanging from a tree right here, they'd be definitely visible.
It's definitely a dark part of our history.
Salem's Mayor Kim Driscoll confirms that no remains were buried or remain on the site. The colony accused 200 people of performing witchcraft. They later admitted that the trials and killings were a mistake.
It's a pivotal part of American history, and it's informed our modern-day judicial undertaking.
I think we're dealing with it in the right way by trying to memorialize those that passed away.
In Salem, Shantae Lands, WBZ News.
Okay, 3 types of colonies. Royal colony, the king rules it. Proprietary colony, that's a gift. And then also joint stock, where you're trying to make money, okay? This is how test questions work, in case you haven't figured out the game. Anytime you see 3 things, the question is always, all of these were 3 types of colonies, except royal, proprietary, joint stock, I made one up. And then you have to circle the made up one. That's how tests work. Anytime you see a little information in 3s, you need to watch out for that. Fair enough? Okay. Uh-oh. Here we go. It's back. Physical geography, human geography. It matters. Still. Okay. So check out these colonies. You've got the South, and they're going to have a better climate for growing crops than the middle colonies. But the middle colonies still have a decent growing season. And then you have the northern colonies, and they're not going to be able to rely on farming as much. Also, special personal note, please notice that Vermont is not one of the original 13 colonies. Look up there by New Hampshire and Maine. There's no Vermont. Okay, that comes later. Just wanted to point that out to you.
I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. And I want to have them answered immediately.
Okay, so here we go. You've got New England colonies, middle colonies, southern colonies. What is it that you need to know about them? Exactly. Physical geography, human geography, poor farming, better farming, great farming. Okay? Again, I'm not saying this causes the Civil War, but you'll see how, no pun intended, growing crops causes these guys to grow apart, have different economies, grow in a different way. Okay. Just setting it up for down the road. So the southern colonies, you're growing the tobacco and rice. And that's going to require more labor. And these guys want free labor. So you have 2 levels. You have slaves and you have indentured servants. So let's go indentured servant real quick. You're in England, you want to come to America, you want to get rich, start a farm, but you don't have the money to get there. You don't have the money to get started. You sign a contract that says, look, I will work for you for 7 years, and then you'll give me some land or something like that. So the difference is, and when you were a slave at this time, most often you were not a slave for life. You were sort of like an indentured servant. That's going to change over time. That's going to get worse. They're kind of right around in here, and then that's going to change. New Netherland is going to become New York. Why is it valuable? We talked about it just a second ago. Why is it valuable? You got it. It's a port, okay? Port cities are valuable. There's a reason that most of the big cities in the world are on an ocean, because it allows you to trade and make money. All right. Okay, so this map is showing you, you've got your colonies, and then you've got this back country. And the back country is where the Native Americans are living. And also, there's a region along the coast, especially in the southern colonies, called the Tidewater region, and that's the best for farming. So you're this indentured servant. You were promised some land. Do you get the Tidewater region, the best land, or do you get the kind of edge of backcountry land? You get the edge of backcountry land, which means you're going to be in conflict with the Native Americans. And this is going to cause a lot of friction throughout, especially in Jamestown. And this is where we're going to get into Bacon's Rebellion.
Bacon's Rebellion of 1676 marked a turning point in the relationship between colonists and local tribes and arose from differences of opinion on how to deal with Susquehannock raids on European settlements in Virginia. Causes of the rebellion began in 1675. The colony faced a number of economic concerns, including a decrease in tobacco prices and increased competition from nearby colonies. At the same time, the colony also faced extreme weather and natural disasters. Tensions reached a breaking point in July 1675. A group of Doeg Indians led a raid on the farm of Thomas Matthews. The raiders claimed Matthews had not paid them for goods he had taken from the tribe. Infuriated, the colonists decided to retaliate and lead a raid of their own. The misguided colonists, however, led a raid on the wrong tribe, the Susquehannocks, and this triggered numerous attacks by neighboring tribes. Sir William Berkeley, the governor of Virginia, tried to broker a peace between the colonists and Native Americans, but his efforts failed. In defiance of Berkeley, Nathaniel Bacon Jr., a Virginia colonist and cousin to the governor, took matters into his own hands, leading a raid against the friendly Appomattox tribe and capturing several of its members. Berkeley continued his efforts to calm hostilities. In March 1676, his assembly declared war on hostile tribes, established a defensive perimeter around Jamestown, and restricted trade with Native Americans. Unfortunately, the measures backfired. The colony needed to increase taxes to build and man a defensive wall, and trade restrictions negatively impacted traders like Bacon. In a second act of defiance against Berkeley, Bacon was elected the leader of a rebel group determined to drive all Native Americans from Virginia. He and his followers attacked the peaceful Occaneechi tribe. Berkeley responded by pursuing Bacon with 300 men. Bacon refused to turn himself in, but he returned to Jamestown in June 1676 after being elected to the House of Burgesses, the colony's governing body. He was then captured and forced to apologize to Berkeley. In a surprising turn of events, however, Bacon's supporters swarmed the State House and forced Berkeley to flee the colony. Bacon maintained control over Virginia until he died of fever in October 1676. Berkeley put down the remainder of the rebellion and hung 23 of Bacon's followers. By now, though, the damage was irreparable. Anti-Native American sentiment had taken root in the colony, and many of the relationships between the colonists and peaceful tribes were destroyed.
But here is sort of the lasting impact. Bacon's Rebellion unites all the people, the slaves and the indentured servants. And the elite, the planter class, they see that and they get scared. They don't want these uprisings that were targeting the Native Americans to turn around and target them. And so now they're going to start relying on slaves and slavery more than indentured servants. What colonies are these? The middle colonies. They're pretty far up north, but they're the middle colonies. Make sure you can find them on a map, okay? Southern, middle, New England. Okay, there's something interesting about Georgia. It's a debtor's colony, so slavery's banned in Georgia at the very beginning. Isn't that kind of interesting? Sometimes we associate Georgia with the South, embracing the Southern values and slavery, but at the very beginning, they banned slavery, okay? So now we're going to get back to the Spanish. Don't forget about them. On this map here, you can see the English colonies. You can see the French. They control a lot of land. Santa Fe, New Mexico, founded in 1607. Pilgrims landed Plymouth in 1620. So approximately 10 years later. This just shows you, we think of the Pilgrims and Jamestown as being the beginning of our history, but the Spanish have already been moving around, especially in the Southwest. Okay, they're going to have something called missions. I want you to know what a mission is. The Presidio is to protect the mission, but the mission is to convert Native Americans to the Spanish way of life. Teach them how to farm, teach them Catholicism, okay? That's what the purpose of the mission is. Okay, I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. Don't forget, we're going to have some Jeopardy review soon, and then the test coming up. The time to study is now, and I'll see you soon.